So it sounds like most of the interest in the content is going to be here, so we're going to blow through the Q&A on this one. You can hold that off to the next segment. Clickstream is the data collection that's going on around the app on the smartphone. One thing that's important to know is that your smartphone is showing you content that comes from two places. One is resident on the phone, the app is installed and interacting. The other are web app pages. So they're pages that sit out on a server somewhere on the internet, preferably on your server, and they look like a web page or an app page on your phone. There are two discrete data sources for those: Weblog on the server side and Clickstream on the phone. And the fun part is connecting those, because they often don't have the same session ID. So you start to get into some very interesting algorithms to figure out how to blend those two together. How do you get to the Clickstream data? One way is to go to whoever built the app for you and ask for the data there, which works. But the best place to get it is from the carriers, to buy it from AT&T, Sprint, and Verizon. And then you start getting into some very interesting conversations around what exactly is the data that they have. They have users linked to the Clickstream, session links to the Clickstream, geo links, and topic links to that Clickstream. Again, I have a spreadsheet that's got 5 tabs, roughly 750 data points that are captured in Clickstream alone with respect to that phone app. Way too much to digest in a 2-hour session. I would encourage you to look at that at some point in time. And with the caveat that your goal is to find the data points that are most meaningful to you in your business, and not to try to capture all of it because it's just too much. Phone calls, how are we linking those to those weblogs? Google, how are we linking weblog data to Google Analytics, social analytics, phone calls, etc. The key here is the algorithm at the top. How are we creating what's called attribution between weblogs, Clickstream, phone calls, Google, and social to create a single model that represents your business, represents your customers, represents their customers, and helps you to understand where you're really achieving results and where you have real opportunity for improvement. From a behavioral standpoint, where are you seeing campaigns resonating in the data? Here we have that same CRO campaign that transitioned from August through September. We saw most of the activity here on Google. We started to see it tighten up here at the end of Bing. The question is, how is that happening? With social analytics and the Bing analytics, as well as Google Analytics, we're able to identify where we saw most of that behavior. We localized it to the Northeast. Now we're trying to understand why they're starting to come together in the Northeast marketplace.
What does the sessions line represent?
That's the combination.
Oh, that's just the two.
Yeah.
Okay.
The numbers are different, and that's because these aren't the only search engines that are active out there.
Wow, enough more.
Yeah. But these guys are the 800-pound gorillas. You want to do it right with Google and Bing. Everybody else, it helps, but it's not nearly as significant or impactful. Speaking of which, Yahoo just released an open source version of their optimization software yesterday. They just announced that. So if you're at all in that business space, there's some real interesting things going on there. While consumers are on your site, what are they doing? Well, early on in the campaign, they were hitting landing pages. And then near the end of September, we started to see this tick up in homepage activity. What is explaining that? Typically, the first thing we do is go look at the search engines and understand how the search engines have indexed your site. Are they are they actively interacting with a sitemap on your site? And as a result, they know where every single page is that you've got active in your content and where consumers are interacting. Have you submitted the landing pages to the search engines explicitly, or did you just depend on them to come find you? And the answer to that question leads directly to where you're going to see the most productive results in your session interaction for these consumers. By the way, these analytics are all being done in Power BI from Microsoft, and we're taking all that data from that variety of sources, packaging it in a model, and then visualizing with Power BI. Because otherwise it's really challenging to take a Google Analytics graph and compare it to a Bing graph and a Twitter graph. Understanding the nuances there gets really confusing. And then finally, we're creating granularity with phone calls between Google, social, and links within the social and Google mix. We look at traffic analytics, etc. So I think it's fair to say there's a lot of data here and there's plenty of glazed eyes, so I'm not going to spend any more time on the data points. What I will focus on is the graphs. And here you can see when we look at activity, activity between different devices, the black bar is mobile, the orange bar is tablet, the yellow bar is desktop. Mobile had a nice trend line through the sequencing. Tablet dropped off near the end. Our goal was to focus on mobile, so we're happy with this graph. We moved on. Okay, I'm going to stop here, and we can ask questions and try to answer them as best we can.
I'll ask the obvious question. Cost-benefit ratio. I might have 15 customers who have looked at me on the web I don't know about in the San Diego area, just pick San Diego. They're paying me to find those customers. And I think I do a pretty good job. But how much is it going to cost for this type of analysis to find those 15 customers? I mean, that's where they'll know is it worth putting another sales guy out there, or is it a cost-effective way? Because I think most of us are not looking for thousands of customers. We're looking for 15 people who really want to do what they need to do.
And you want 15 a month?
How many do we want, Richard?
Yeah, that's a really key question. Because our target audience is really, there are not that many. Let's say if you look at the number of biotech companies in the entire United States, it's only in the thousands, right?
4,000.
Yeah, and if you have certain criteria, then it rapidly shrink down to hundreds that you want to talk to.
I'd say corporately, we do 90 to 100 new projects a year with 10 business development people.
Okay.
So I think another way of asking this question is, we can analyze all the click data or the stream, but the other side of the question is, how do I know whether the other 90 people, why are they not clicking at our site?
Sure. Those are very good questions in terms of understanding the opportunity cost related to applying one strategy versus another. But at core, what the number we've landed on is a 10% increase in revenue. What we've seen is a 10% increase in revenue that gets started in the first 90 days and actualizes within 12 months. And the question is 10% more business important to you?
As long as it's on the upside rather than the downside, because numbers oscillate. So
Absolutely.
I'd rather have 10% increase than 10% decrease.
Yep, absolutely. We now have case studies and data that is evidence that we use to make the case for the 10%. And we, in our business, we've seen various gain sharing models to share the risk of that upside versus downside. It's important to note that digital marketing is wild, wild west. There's a ton of different solutions going on out there. And so you're seeing all kinds of business models wrapped around this one. What we typically do is a base subscription, and it's performance based. You know, if you're not getting the results you're looking for in that first 90 days, that you have an opt out. So in terms of managing risk, you're in a pretty good position. Then it's about, okay, if I hit this target, what's my next goal? And is it then a 6 to 12 month window, or 18 to 24 month window.
Can I do all these analysis on my competitor?
So let me answer that question with a question. How do you think Google would answer that question?
Yes.
They don't show you your competitors' data. So if you want to see your competitors' Google Analytics, have fun. We actually can get to that for you through a couple other channels and by triangulation at the model level. But they are very resistant to sharing that data because it's their
It's
secret.
war,
Yeah,
of course.
that's right.
But you can generalize it up by market,
That's right.
right? So you can see it on, to a certain extent, but it may not be specific, so you can still look at general trending and.
It won't be granular, but it would be I think useful.
Absolutely,
I mean, you can say, hey, where do you fit?
right.
And it would give you kind of a baseline for you. I mean, your company, and this is what my competitors are basically doing, and this is what they're getting in a basic sense of results. But you're not going to be able. But it doesn't matter. It'll allow you. That's a good thing for your ROI to say, hey, you're looking at the program and looking where you're at.
And so, of course, all these analytics is to answer your questions, right?
Right.
We ask a lot of questions about our audience. So can I ask this type of question? I want to know, the scientists in the biotech world, what are they looking for today?
Now we're getting down to the messaging issues, the marketing strategy. This is a tool. It doesn't create your entire marketing strategy on that end. It's back to where I come in and you come in. I mean, you have to, at some basic level, know your customer and say what your whole point to your business. And you're successful because you wouldn't be here if you weren't. And you are making sales and you're succeeding as a company. The issue is how do we move to another level? How do we get better? And so this is a tool to jumpstart what your normal marketing strategy would be. Vis-a-vis, what do you say about demos? What do you offer your customers? That kind of basic decision is a core decision that's not based on digital marketing. Because you either